Hi, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to my weekly podcast about spirituality, love, death, devotion, and waking up while living in a messy world. The Satsang with Shambhavi podcast is recorded live each week with students of our nonprofit community, Jayakula. For more information and to find out about attending a satsang, visit jayakula.org. Thanks for listening. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. One thing I learned when I was doing a purification practice many years ago, purification of the 6 lokas of samsara, was that when we're operating through our fixation, through our repetitious tensions, we become more monodimensional than when we're in a less fixated condition. So it's almost like we get reduced to this script. And when I was doing that practice, I encountered some beings who needed help freeing themselves from certain kinds of karmas. And that's how I learned this from them. The way that they talked and the way that they moved and what their concerns were. I learned that when we are under the sway or under the spell of these repeating patterns, then we really become much less nuanced, much less rich than otherwise when we're in a more spontaneous and open condition. We know that the outcome of doing spiritual practice of any sort through to its conclusion is that we experience more freedom. The kind of freedom that we are experiencing is not the individualistic freedom that we imagine when we're like 14. No, Mom, I'm going to do anything I want. That's how I was at 14 anyway. That was my version of freedom back then. And I think some of us have not really left that version of freedom very far behind. We've sort of updated it to its adult version, but we can't really conceive of or don't stop to conceive of a kind of freedom that isn't about us getting to do whatever we want. So the kind of freedom that is the result of waking up after doing a lot of spiritual practice is freedom from conditioning. It's freedom from the conditioning of past, present, and future. It's freedom to express yourself spontaneously in response to something. So when we think of, well, I'm just going to express myself, I'm just going to express myself. Well, okay, but that's still based on this self-contained sense of an individual. When you do practice and you wake up a little bit more, you don't have such a self-contained experience. And so you have an experience that's more porous, more open to sensory impressions and to connections, to this sense of being in a weave with everything else. And so your freedom to express yourself is in response to what is happening in the total matrix of your experience, which is now much larger than just this individualistic self. So that's what we talk about when we mean unconditioned, is that you're not conditioned by what happened before. You're not conditioned by what you think might happen in the future. You're not conditioned by present concepts about things. You are being there, being aware, having all the gates of the senses open in a state of total communication with everything else. And you are responding spontaneously. And so, of course, the metaphor is not dun, 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 do whatever I want. The metaphor is improvisational music. So if you're playing improvisational music and you just dun dun dun, the whole thing is going to make no sense. I mean, you can't do improvisational music if you're not really in that instant presence of responsivity to everything. So this is freedom to spontaneously improvise without any limit of conditioning of past, present, and future. What I want to actually talk about is when we encounter reactivity in others, particularly when it's directed at us. reactivity, aka karma, aka tension, aka conditioning, is a script. And the script needs players. So you have some kind of conditioning and you have a script. And you have to have other people play parts in your script. Like, for instance, if the script is that we're in a relationship, say, and my karmic script is that you are going to disappoint me. I need to have someone there to play the part of the disappointer, so I can be the disappointee. It just doesn't happen with only me, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a situation in which I can find someone to agree that, yes, they are disappointing, so that they will play that role with me. They will play that script with me. But what happens a lot, especially the more you begin to have some awareness, is that you start to notice that people are offering you roles in their scripts, but you're not really that comfortable playing those roles anymore. And even more so when you are being invited to play a role in somebody else's script. I'm so angry at you because, and we feel like, oh, I have to answer. I have to tell this person why they shouldn't be angry at me, or why they misunderstood what I said, or, okay, now you're in their script. When someone has a script like they want to be angry at somebody, or they want things to be disappointing, because otherwise their karma is not fulfilling itself, it really doesn't matter what the details of the script are. The details of the script are just a jumping off point for feeling disappointment or feeling anger or feeling whatever it is, right? When you engage at the level of the detail, the content, you are basically participating in a ruse, right? You're participating in a sleight of hand, which is that we're actually talking about something real, like the thing I did to piss you off or the thing you did to disappoint me, when it isn't real. And basically, I just want to feel angry or I want to feel disappointed. And, any details will do. So I'm just roving around like a fixated, monochromatic, monomaniacal portion of a person, literally looking for an excuse to feel disappointed or angry or jealous or superior or sad or frustrated or whatever. I'm roving around my karmas, My karma is like a little being that's inhabiting me. It's roving around, vigilantly looking for an opportunity to play the script, to play that game, right? To play its part. So this is what I learned when I was doing this practice, because when I was doing it, it's a karma melting kind of a practice. And I got very, very deep into it, and I was doing it for hours a day over many, many months. And I started to have dreams, and I started to have waking experiences of beings coming to me, like who were stuck in various karmas. And it would be something like some little being would be like, come with me, come with me, come with me. My wife and children are starving. Come with me, come with me, come with me. Or some other being would say, no, I didn't do the right thing. Oh, no, I didn't do the right thing. Oh, no, I didn't do the right thing. Like that. And they would be like repeating these things. They were like parts of personalities. They weren't whole people. They weren't whole beings. They were like disembodied pieces of karma, which is exactly what happens when we get into these things, right? We're like, okay, anger. I love being angry at you. I'm looking. I'm going to run that script on you. It's exactly the same thing. So when you find yourself in that situation, because we're such nice people, and because a lot of us have self-doubts, or we doubt our own perception of what's really happening, or maybe we have similar lock and key karmas, like, wow, I feel like I'm always doing something wrong and you're always angry at me. Perfect. Let's get married. We'll have a great life. Some of that happens because we really are in karmic sync with that person in some way. Some of it is because we've just been trained that if someone tries to engage us in something, that we have to engage on their terms. And the fact of the matter is that you don't have to engage with people on the level of their fixations. If someone demands, even nicely and sweetly and seductively, because it's not always something aggressive in an obvious way, that you participate in their fixation on the level of their fixation, answering to all their concerns, justifying yourself, pumping them up to feel better about themselves. Whatever it is that's being asked of you, you're doing it because you're being nice, or you're afraid, or you didn't really think there was an alternative, or something like that. You don't have to do that. And when we're working in community, you should know that, because we're working with each other and we're giving each other reflection. We do not have to take up bit parts in other people's fixations. How do you not do that? What I'm describing to you is a tremendous source of freedom. You are like a non-unionized, unpaid actor when you do that. Well, in order to not do that, first of all, we have to deeply realize that we don't have to. That just because someone invites us into their picture of their fantasy, basically, karmic fantasy about being jealous or something, right? We have to realize deeply that if it doesn't apply to us, if it really has nothing to do with us, that we don't have to engage on the other person's terms. So you have to deeply realize that you don't have to do that. You have to realize that this is just something that's happening. That script is just something that's happening. It's just God showing up that way. And it's an opportunity for us to detach from this compulsion to respond in kind. If someone's angry with us, we don't have to get angry back at them. If something bad happens to us, we don't have to react in some script-like way. If someone attacks us, we don't have to feel attacked. It isn't required. We think it's required. Someone says something bad about us. We think it's required that we have to feel bad or we have to feel angry. It is not required. That is a script. That is a karma. That's just being horizontal, acting according to the script. So, first of all, you have to recognize that it is a script. You've embodied many, 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 many of these things. You are already participating in innumerable scripts that are shaping your emotions and your thoughts. And then other people are continually inviting you to participate in these karmic realm visions. And you are doing that, and a lot of people's lives are mainly that. So as practitioners, we want to start to feel how strange that is. How strange is it that if someone is jealous of us, we feel guilty? That's odd. That's a mutually agreed upon script, something we have embodied. So we have to recognize those things, that we have to recognize that things sometimes don't have anything to do with us, that they're just the other person's karma, or that we have interiorized concepts and patterns of feeling that we have just absorbed or inherited that have really nothing to do with how we actually feel about things. So we have to get a little bit of estrangement from that. And then we have to find ways to not participate. And it's very, very difficult. This is something that I've been working on my entire life. And the first way that I encountered it as a little girl was the things that were expected of me as a little girl. Just being a girl. What I was supposed to be like, what I was supposed to do, my role in our family did not feel right to me. It felt like something that was being imposed on me. And how could I still be in a situation but not be commandeered by these scripts, basically? Totally commandeered, have your whole life taken over by these things. And it is sometimes hard for people around you when you step out of what are basically contracts, but you can do it, and you can do it open-heartedly. So as a practitioner, the way that you can do this gracefully and open-heartedly is by recognizing that we're all affected by these things, that absolutely no one is at fault. So even when someone does something horrible to you, no one is at fault. This is simply how this aware alive reality is expressing itself. We all have these things going on, and no one is at fault. And when someone tries to get you into their karmic realm vision, or even like you've internalized a lot of stuff, like sexism, and we've all internalized that kind of thing, and all kinds of other stuff, particularly around sexuality and gender. They're the most kind of nitty-gritty, endemic things that we've internalized. It isn't anybody's fault. This is just an arising expression of this reality, and we are all working with it. When you admit the painful, bitter admission that it isn't anybody's fault, and that there's nobody to be angry at about it, and that we all have this going on, and we are all co-participants in this, then you can feel open-hearted towards people, even people who are hurting you. When you can have this experience of the compulsion that's involved. So this is one of the things I learned during this practice, just the complete compulsion that was driving these karmas. When someone is mean to you or treats you in a way you would rather not be treated, they are in a state of compulsion, and they are not doing it to you. You are just the person who has agreed to be standing there while they're doing their thing. They are not doing it to you. It is not personal. It is a compulsion. It is something that's just running, a pattern of consciousness and energy. So if we can first recognize these things, and then recognize that no one is at fault, and that we are all experiencing this, then we can know what to do. And we can do it with love and a sense of detachment and compassion. We don't have to stick around for everything, but we can learn how to say no, and we can learn how to leave, and we can learn how to stay, and we can, learn these different ways of relating to fixation once we recognize that nobody is at fault and that there's nothing to be angry about, even if we're being attacked or mistreated. We can learn better how to manage our energy. We can see things for what they are. We can see ourselves and other people much more clearly when we start to sort of tease out all the things we've ingested and that we embody, and see other people doing their karmic fixation dance. We can see this very, very clearly, and we can feel tenderness towards people, understanding what condition we're all in. And we can say things like, I love you, but I'm leaving now. Or I'll stay, but I'm not going to talk this way, and this has nothing to do with me. Or, what? I have no idea what you're talking about, and it has nothing to do with me. Or I see that this is something that's really got you, but it really isn't about me. There's many, many ways you can be there or not be there, or engage or express sympathy or protect yourself, because sometimes we do just need to protect ourselves, because there's a lot of wackadoodle karmas out there. But there's many, many ways to do that without being angry with anyone, without having to put anybody down, without thinking that somebody else is in the wrong and we're in the right. We're always subject to karma until we're not. And everybody is experiencing that same thing in different areas of their lives and to different degrees. But we really, as practitioners, have to learn to recognize this, and how to not have our energies used up with the karmas that are running and that are meeting other people and running together, or the ones that don't even have anything to do with us at all. So pretty much my whole life, I have been trying to escape demands that other people have put on me to participate in their dramas. I wouldn't say that I've perfected getting away. I have not, but but I have learned an awful lot about it, and that it is absolutely possible to do it with love and compassion. And that doesn't prevent people from being mad at you. I mean, it's not like you're being loving and compassionate so other people will never be upset with you. That isn't why you're doing it. You're doing it because you understand that will be beneficent. That will be helpful, even if you don't see immediately how it's helpful. It's part of the generosity of being a real practitioner, that you try to really see what's happening clearly and open your heart and not be in a state of blame or panic about what other people are doing. So try to have that clarity when you're dealing with behaviors from other people that are bothering you, when you feel your own reactivity arising in response to that. Try to think of what I just said and understand that there's no one else at fault. You don't need to defend yourself on the other person's terms. Sometimes you need to protect yourself, but that's different. We never need to defend ourselves. We don't need to defend our value. We don't need to defend what we're doing or why we're doing it. Neither does anybody else. As a community, we're working together, trying to help each other unwind those karmas, not reinforce them. And of course, the other side of this is being responsible for your own tensions. You don't get to keep any of them. There is nothing that you get to keep in your back pocket. And you get to a point where you recognize that. Maybe at the beginning, stage 1, you still think, oh, I'm enjoying this, feeling a bit more relaxed, everything's going a little bit more smoothly, but I'm still going to act like a jerk because it feels so good. No, you don't get to keep that. So stage 2 is you start to realize that you want to not disrupt other people or make them feel badly. Stage 2 is when you really start to experience, I'm making this up about stage 1 and stage 2. There's no such thing. But, it's just a manner of speaking. You can't practice, you can't continue to any degree of depth in your practice if you don't experience a feeling of generosity towards other people that includes not wanting to hurt them. Sometimes inevitably we get into entanglements with other people and other people feel hurt. That is not avoidable. But you have to have a feeling of generosity, and that really includes making an attempt to not run your fixations on other people. You may not always be able to help it, but you have to want to not do that. That's part of being generous, a big part of it. So occasionally something happens in this community where people are obviously just with gusto enjoying treating other people badly. So I want people who ever feel that to recognize that's what you're doing and be responsible for that. It doesn't mean being perfect. It means you are no longer feeling you are justified. You are no longer being unconscious about it. You no longer think that you have a right to do that. You recognize that it is not part of the practice. All you're doing is reinforcing your karma. And it's fine. We'll all survive. But, if you are not having a heartfelt desire to leave other people undisturbed so that they can realize you are a baby in this path, no doubt about it. The last thing that anyone who has any realization wants to do is to disturb anybody else and hinder them from their path. What you want to do from the heart is help other people wake up, recognizing that the glory of being able to be on a path like this and how you just want everyone else to benefit from that. And you certainly do not want to make anybody feel bad about themselves or stand in anybody's way or be obstructive in any way. So that's the responsibility part that comes out of a feeling of heartfelt generosity. Heartfelt generosity comes first, and then, I'm going to be more responsible for how I'm showing up. So I talked last week briefly, about how, some people act one way around me and then another way around other people, thinking they're getting away with something. There's no such thing as wanting to get away with anything when you are really in this practice. We may go unconscious. We will go unconscious for moments and still be our usual selves. That will happen. But if you still want to do that and still think you have a right to do that and still think it's somebody else's fault that you're doing that, then you are really just a rank beginner. Think about what you want. Don't settle for half measures, as Ma always said. I can't tell you how good it feels to have this kind of freedom, not being pushed and pulled around by everything that happens. It feels so good. It feels so good to be able to love people and be generous towards people even when they're jerks. That feels great. Feels so free that no one can move you off of your heart. It's so powerful to be able to help people even when they're abusing you, even if it just means sending a loving thought somebody's way, right? It's so powerful and free to be the same around everybody and not have like 15 different personalities. We're like shopping around in different situations. That feels wonderful, to just be yourself in every situation. It's so great to not ever think, not even once, for years on end, I wonder if so-and-so likes me. What should I do? How should I be? What if he's mad at me? It's really great not to have thoughts like that for years on end. So if you like what you see, there's only one way to get here, and that is with utter sincerity.